All right, let's jump right in because honestly, the world of logistics and supply chains has been turned on its head. We're going to break down this brand new regulatory landscape that's starting to affect, well, pretty much every single business with a global footprint. You know, for the last few years, all we've heard about is voluntary commitments and big corporate pledges. Well, guess what? That era is officially over. We have entered the age of the mandate. What used to be optional is now a hard, non-negotiable requirement, and it's coming with some very serious teeth. And look, this is the part that really matters. This isn't about some paragraph in your annual sustainability report anymore. We're talking about your bottom line. These new rules are creating real, tangible costs that hit your profitability directly. For a lot of companies, compliance has become one of the most expensive parts of just doing business.
So let's start with part one, the year of the mandate. We're going to dig into why this massive shift is happening right now and what it really means.
Now for part two, the European Union's hammer. See, the EU basically decided it wasn't going to wait around for the rest of the world to catch up. They've become the global pace setter, and their regulations are now in full swing.
First on the list is something called the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM for short. As of January 1st, 2026, this thing has moved into its final, definitive phase. So what does that mean? It means if you're importing stuff like steel, aluminum, or cement into the EU, you're no longer just reporting the carbon footprint, you are now paying a tax on it right at the border.
And this, of course, is having a massive impact on shipping. The EU's carbon market, the ETS, now fully includes maritime transport. But here's the real kicker. It doesn't just cover CO2 anymore. Nope. They've added methane and nitrous oxide to the mix, and that has caused those green surcharges you're probably seeing on your freight invoices to absolutely skyrocket.
And this number, 100%, really says it all. The phase-in period, the time to get used to it, that's over. As of this year, 100% of emissions for any voyage between two EU ports are subject to carbon pricing. The training wheels are off. This is the full cost hitting right now. So, with the EU moving so aggressively, you're probably wondering, what's the rest of the world doing? Well, that's where things get messy. There's a leadership vacuum at the global level, and it's created a really fractured, really challenging landscape for anyone in international logistics.
A huge piece of this story is the complete failure of the International Maritime Organization, the IMO. They were supposed to be the ones to create a single, unified global rule for shipping emissions. But their big global vote failed late last year, and they've basically just kicked the can down the road.
And this stalemate creates a huge question for every single global company, right? If there isn't one standard to follow, what does the world of shipping and logistics actually look like now?
And the answer is what we're calling the regulatory patchwork. You know, nature abhors a vacuum, and so do regulators. Without a global rule, all these regional powers are jumping in to fill the void. The EU is pushing ahead, but now Singapore and China are also rolling out their own local standards. For shippers, this means trying to navigate a crazy maze of different costs and different reporting rules depending on which port you're sailing into. It's complicated.
Okay, so now let's hop across the Atlantic. Over in North America, the story is a little bit different. The main driver here isn't a direct carbon tax, but a really powerful push for one thing: transparency. There are two key rules you've got to watch. First, the SEC's new climate rules mean large public companies are now having to report their 2025 emissions data. And even though they don't have to report their full supply chain emissions, what they call Scope 3, their big institutional investors are watching this data like hawks. Then you've got California, which, remember, is like the world's fifth largest economy. Companies there are scrambling to get ready for the June 2026 disclosure deadline for their direct emissions. The pressure is definitely on. Okay, so we've laid out the problems. New taxes, a mess of different rules, disclosure pressures. I get it, it sounds pretty overwhelming. But what if we try to reframe this whole thing? This last part is all about pivoting from that defensive, check-the-box compliance mindset to actually seeing this new landscape as a huge strategic opportunity. Because in this kind of environment, the old way of doing things just isn't going to cut it. You know, having a sustainability manager who focuses on compliance, that's just table stakes now. The real advantage, the real win, comes from developing a totally new function: regulatory intelligence. This is about proactively using all this complex information to get ahead of your competition.
This slide just lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? The past was all about compliance and seeing it as just another cost center. The future is about using regulatory intelligence to find a competitive edge and actually turning what looks like a cost into a potential driver of profit.
So how do you actually do it? Here are 2 immediate actionable things you can start doing. First, audit every single one of those green surcharges on your freight bills. Seriously, are they legit pass-through costs or are carriers just marking them up? You have to know. Second, start actively seeking out and capitalizing on carriers that operate a clean fleet.
Because this is the new economic reality, folks. A modern, low-emission fleet isn't just a nice-to-have PR win anymore. In a world of carbon taxes, those fleets are now objectively, measurably cheaper to operate. They get to avoid all the penalties that older, less efficient ships and trucks are now getting slapped with. This creates a real, tangible financial advantage.
So, to wrap it all up, we've basically arrived at the policy cliff. That gradual slope of voluntary action we were all on, it's gone. We are now at a sharp, sudden drop-off where ignoring these regulatory shifts is just not an option anymore. It will be a direct hit to your operations and your budget.
And that leaves us with this final question for you to think about for your own business. Faced with this cliff, are you using your data, your intelligence, to proactively build a bridge to the other side? Or are you just standing at the edge, kind of hoping you don't fall off? The choice you make right now is going to define your competitive position for years to come.